私たちの元救世主をクライ到着しました。
Welcome back to another Revelation Online video. Today I want to discuss leveling and gearing. Most of my knowledge comes from in-game experience, other players, the forums, my.com themselves, but overall my time spent on the Chinese client and a player named Chaotic who I worked with to bring you guys this video. Keep in mind that what we are about to discuss is subject to change because this information comes from the Chinese client. For example, having a limit on dungeons. If 90% of the player base complained that only being able to run a specific dungeon 2 times a day was too little, then maybe my.com would take that feedback and change it up, extending the amount of dungeon runs or removing the limit. We don't know what changes my.com could make to the game. Also keep in mind that I'm cramming a ton of valuable information into this video and I know it's going to be a lot to process, so pause it and take notes if you have to. And for those of you that do make it into beta, please remember to use that time to give feedback, not just play for fun, but tell the company what you like and what you dislike. This will help us shape Revelation into the perfect game for the West. So let's talk about leveling. How is it? Is it easy to reach max cap? Oh, and by the way, what is max cap? Currently max cap is level 79. Now they plan to make content for Revelation for 10 years, they say, so I'm sure it will increase over time, but for now it's 79. So as a new player, what is the fastest way to level? The story. Following the story from the beginning will take you all the way to around level 30 or maybe more before you have to start doing side quests and leveling by other ways to get any further into the story. From personal experience, I'm pretty sure I could get to around 35 or 40 in a few hours. You definitely can make it there in a day. Once you get familiar with running the story, you can easily get a few alts to around 40 quickly. Now the story in Revelation is solo. You don't group up with friends, and you get put into a shit ton of instances where you go through solo dungeons with story NPCs as your allies, or flashbacks to running back and forth talking to NPCs a million times. The questing is kind of generic, but overall it's a story full of cutscenes and tons of feels. You'll see what I'm talking about once you play. So yes, early on the story is the fastest way to level for a new player. When can you start grouping up with friends and do group content? Well, the story goes on until I believe level 57. That's where I've seen the story stop, so far I'm going to say it ends there. After you reach around level 40, you will notice the experience gain becomes much slower, and the story just isn't helping too much. You'll also see that you can't continue the story until you hit a certain level. There are also 2 types of main quests. Yellow quests are the story quests, and orange quests are more important. They help you unlock certain character features, teach you how to craft, how to get flying skills, basically teach you the mechanics of the game. These are a necessity and worth good experience, and even orange quests get to a point where you need to be a certain level to continue. Now around 35 you get your first real dungeon unlocked, and you should start grouping up in parties and doing all the dungeons you can daily to maximize your experience gain. Daily dungeons, the hot springs, everything you can do to gain experience, you should do it all daily to maximize experience gain, which eventually will allow you to continue the story and then repeat. Don't rely on the story of Revelation to carry you to the top. It's great for experience early on, but at later levels, your main source of experience comes from dungeon runs, dailies, hot springs, PvP, pretty much everything else. The story does help and also keeps you occupied, but there will be times where you don't meet the level requirement to continue, so do dungeons and stuff in between or whenever you can. Now, really, if you want to reach the end game in a timely manner, or be a hardcore player and reach the top as soon as possible, you should do every daily you can, but some of the most important things to do are the PvE arena. This gives a ton of experience and some cloud coupons. Your daily and weekly exorcism quests should also be done every day and every week. Going to the C tab on your character, and what is the last tab right now, this might change with an update, but this tab shows you your daily and weekly dungeons. This lady at this location will teleport you to whatever daily dungeon you have. Some dungeons are meant for higher levels, but if they become a daily dungeon, they will scale down. Now these exorcism dailies give a ton of reputation. Exorcism is important because the more rep you have, eventually you can increase your exo rank, which allows you to buy materials from the exo rep vendors that are needed for crafting the best gear. I'll elaborate on this a little more in a bit, but we'll explain exorcism more in detail in a separate video. Just remember that as soon as you can do your daily exorcism quest, you should do them, which I think is around level 40. The AFK hot springs allow you to drink a potion, or juice, or eat some type of snack that allows you to gain experience, only while in the hot springs. You can use the hot springs that can be found in major cities, or you can use the hot springs located in your guild hub. For those wondering, yes, each guild has their own instance region. It's pretty damn big, and I did make a video showcasing the area that you can find in my Revelation playlist or the description. There are also other dailies and mentor quests where you can take other players with you through dungeons as a mentor. There are many new areas and dungeons you unlock as you hit certain levels. The dungeon tab shows you all the dungeons and types of arenas or instances you can do for your level. There are jumping puzzles, Mario Party type Monopoly games, dungeons, and more, and what you can do is auto path to these areas from this tab or teleport directly to them. Playing in Chinese, I didn't do everything there was that was available for me, and some of these confused me as to what they were, but once we get a proper translation, I'm sure I'll find out that I was only doing half of what I could do. So keep track of these tabs and make sure you AFK level as much as possible in the hot springs. You don't actually have to be AFK, but that's just what we call it. Some potions give more experience than others, and some last 15 minutes while others last 30. I'll link a video here where I talk about the hot springs if you want to know more. There are also these open instance dungeons where you and many other players can go to farm mobs. With the party, this can be done quickly, and these mobs drop good loot but also give a great amount of experience. The further you go into these dungeons, the higher level the mobs get. There's even mini bosses in these places. You can also purchase an item that transforms you into a monster and allows you to kill players. I've done it a few times, so have my friends, but Chaotic says it's for killing botters who farm elites all day. I believe you can PvP in these areas as well, so players might be a little aggressive when it comes to their farm spots. Luckily, I think there are a few channels, but depending on our population, you might always have to fight for your mobs or stick with the group. So maximize your experience gain here, and then leave. There's a limit to how many mobs you can farm that will benefit you daily, and you can see that by this purple bar that fills up. So do your dailies and run as many dungeons as many times as possible for good loot, materials, and experience. Now leveling kind of slows down at about 40, and you will soon see that this game is not a game you can hit max level overnight. I've been playing for months and I'm only 61, but I only play about 3 hours a day, 4 times a week, as I only play while streaming. So I play very casually, and I also have another character at 53, and all at 41, and a few around 20. I spend most of my time focusing on my Twitch chat more than the game, so if I was to no-life the game, as I will be doing once we get OBT or released, then I'm sure I could be around max level by now. Some players have said it takes 2 months to hit max level, and some have said 4. This just gives you an idea of how long it takes to hit max level. Now don't panic, the end game is not where all the good stuff is. Every level is where all the good stuff is. There will always be tons of dungeons to run, tons of activities, PvP battlegrounds, and arenas for different level brackets. If we have weekly sieges from the start, there is no way anyone will be max level when we have our first siege. Personally, I really enjoy this. In every other MMO that I've recently played, you can hit max cap in a week or less. Terra, I hit in one sitting, and the same for other games. The thing is, these other MMOs usually don't get fun until max cap. There are things to look forward to in Rev like endgame dungeons and having the best gear possible, which we will explain in a bit, but they do a great job of keeping the game fun. I would say things get real fun around 50 because by then you have a few dungeons unlocked and quite a few daily activities to keep you occupied for hours. With open world PvP and battlegrounds, things won't get boring. Now this is from my experience on the Chinese client. But once half of us are walking around with VIP, the experience gain could make a dramatic difference. I've been at points where I couldn't continue certain quests because I didn't meet the level requirements. Little theory, but if you have VIP from the start, will we gain enough experience that we never get to that point? Because by the time we unlock the new quest, we already meet the requirements. Experience gain is huge, especially if you want to hit max or end game as soon as possible. But I've played without VIP on the Chinese servers, and I've enjoyed the game, so it's not like you can't without it. But remember, this is the Chinese server, so experience and leveling could be very different for our version. Eventually you reach a certain level, 39 or 40. It's been a while. Once you hit that level, you will have control over whether or not you will level. If you choose not to, your experience bar will sit at max, but you can still gain experience. Once you choose to level, the experience you've been building up might max out your bar again. However, you can only have a certain amount of experience held if you choose not to level, so don't expect to stay at 50 and gain enough experience to hit 58 when you're ready. A couple friends told me you can only save up to 200% experience. I can't prove this, it could be more, so take that with a grain of salt. Now, why would you want to hold back your level? Well, that kind of ties in with gearing. If you follow your orange quest, you get to craft your first weapon at level 37. This weapon will be your baby. You will continue to upgrade it as you level up. Crafted gear is the best gear in the game. In the main cities, you can find exorcism NPCs that allow you to craft weapons, armor, and accessories. You can see that different armor pieces and weapons have certain level requirements. The higher your level, the more the dungeons will scale. So if you are in a dungeon at level 60, the dungeon will scale to around your level, unless running with lower levels, it will try to meet you guys somewhere in the middle. But if a dungeon scales with your level, it will be more difficult, and if you are in level 46 gear while being level 60, your DPS and defense will be bad, and you'll get destroyed if you take damage. So it's best to hold your level back until you are properly geared for that level, staying at level 49 until you have all your 49 crafted gear, then allowing yourself to level until you meet the next tier of gear level requirement, and then staying at that level until properly geared. Repeating this process until max is key. A level 59 with 59 gear is more valuable than a level 79 with 59 gear, because that 79 will make the content much harder for the party and will only be doing level 59 damage. So these crafting NPCs will be your best friends. The materials needed to craft these items can mostly, if not all, be found at the EXO rep vendors. And as I said earlier, running your exorcism dailies and weeklies will increase your rank and give you enough points to buy the materials needed for crafting. Now let's talk about the most important types of gear. The EXO gear we just spoke about is most likely the gear you will be crafting until endgame. There is also PvP gear that can be bought with PvP military points, also known as honor. PvP gear is good, of course, for PvP and has bonus stats like PvP resist and ignore PvP resist. The exorcism gear is a good balanced set that has general stats for your class. There is also the 120 part quest that you can do weekly. Yes, 120 quests a week. After completing these quests, you get a recipe that can be used with your life skills and other materials to craft a piece of gear. The gear you craft with these recipes is also specific to your level bracket. It can be a piece of armor, a main hand, offhand, or ring. The stats on these pieces is totally random, so not only do you not know what piece you'll get, but on a fresh server, finding the recipes you need for this type of crafted set will be extremely hard. So you can only imagine how high the demand of these recipes will be, meaning they'll probably be super expensive. You also don't know whether the stats will be good or bad, and will spend a lot of time re-rolling. Now with all that being said, it's maybe best to wait until the later levels or end game to craft this kind of set, because with the pricing and RNG, crafting it while being level 49 would just be a waste. There is another way to get these recipes though, and that is by this dungeon is a rare drop. I can't pronounce the name, but it's this dungeon. There is a PvE set of gear that can be crafted by materials you get from running end-game dungeons and raids on God mode. You can even buy sets of basic blue and purple gear from merchants with in-game currency, but none of these sets will top the 4 types of gear I mentioned earlier. So you might get good dungeon drops, but crafted is always the way to go, and you can make your items even better by enchanting them. As you upgrade your items to the next tier, the enchantment passes over. There is a lot of RNG in this game, but it's not as bad as previous games I've played, and again, this can be a video by itself. But it's not like Arcade or Black Desert RNG where your gear breaks or downgrades, so don't worry too much about that. You can also dismantle gear and use the materials you receive to craft better gear. Purple items have a chance of giving you these orange crystals which are used to craft exo gear. If you don't get the crystals from dismantling, then you get cloud coupons. So either way, dismantling gear gives you something. The higher the rarity of the item you dismantle, the higher the chance you have of getting the crafting crystals. So not only does dismantling items give you crafting materials or money, but it saves you inventory space and exo currency. So I hope this explains the leveling and gear progression of Revelation. I'll try to make a video in the future where I go more into detail on the gear such as gem slots, re-rolling your gear for the best stats, the suffix, and more. But I feel that would be way too much information for one video, so we'll discuss that separately. Let me know what you guys think, and if anyone has information to add, please do in the comments. Remember, this isn't a full-on how to level 1 through 79 guide. Maybe I'll make one of those, but I also have a do's and don'ts or top things to know about Revelation video coming. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you soon, friends.